Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Godly Truth once again. I have a few interesting clips that I would like to share with you all today, but before we get there, take a look at these headlines to see what's happening in this world all around us. How Satan is making himself manifest through men in power by implementing draconian policies to take away all of our freedoms and rights, and even our liberty of conscience is irrelevant to these so-called leaders. What they are really doing is dividing us so they can conquer us, making us think that we are a threat to each other while they are the real threat. They are turning us against each other. We can't even socialize with our own family members anymore. Why? They are telling us we are a bunch of outbreaks and not to be trusted, and that we need to listen to them and not to the voice of reason. God's word tells us, my friend, we ought not to trust any man, but to place our trust only in Jesus. These evil men are spreading fears all over the world just so they can take total control of our lives. Friends, I am here to tell you that judgment is coming, and anyone whose name is not found written in the book of life will face the ultimate consequence. I pray and hope our name is there. Enjoy the video.
As part of our overall national response to this new outbreak, I am now directing medical officers of health that all cases, confirmed cases, are to be managed in a quarantine facility. Now, this is different to how positive cases were managed when we were last at levels 4 and indeed 3, and shows how serious we are about limiting any risk of ongoing transmission, even in self-isolation and including to others in the household. This will apply to any cases and also close family members who might be at risk as appropriate. A reminder, these facilities have been set up specifically and have excellent processes and resources in place to look after people with COVID-19, including health staff on site at all times, and it will help us avoid any further inadvertent spread into the community as part of our overall response.
If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test. I've got a number of questions about people refuse. What do we do if someone refuses to be tested? Well, they can't now. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test.
The pandemic, and Mayor de Blasio is cracking down on visitors from restricted states and enforcing the law for them to quarantine for 14 days. The mayor says he's signing an executive order today that requires hotels to have these visitors fill out quarantine forms before check-in.
Any hotel, any short-term rental must get that form from the traveler, complete with the contact information. And if they don't have that form from the traveler, they should not give them access to their room, period. This is going to be now a rule here in New York City because we have to get serious about the fact that there's a real danger here. We have to confront it.
Failure to comply with the quarantine is a misdemeanor. A short time ago, Governor Cuomo announced more states have been added to the travel advisory. They are Alaska and Delaware, which was removed from the list 2 weeks ago. People traveling from 35 states are now required quarantine upon arrival in New York, as you just heard from the mayor a second ago. Now, no.
Several countries around the world are now experiencing fresh outbreaks after a long period with little or no transmission. These countries are a cautionary tale for those that are now seeing a downward trend in cases. Progress does not mean victory. The fact remains that most people remain susceptible to this virus. That's why it's vital that countries are able to quickly identify and prevent clusters to prevent community transmission and the possibility of new restrictions. No country can just ride this out until we have a vaccine. A vaccine will be a vital tool, and we hope that we will have one as soon as possible. But there is no guarantee that we will. And even if we do have a vaccine, it won't end the pandemic on its own. We must all learn to control and manage this virus using the tools we have now, and to make the adjustments to our daily lives that are needed to keep ourselves and each other safe. So-called lockdowns enabled many countries to suppress transmission and take the pressure off their health systems. But lockdowns are not a long-term solution for any country. We do not need to choose between lives and livelihoods, or between health and the economy. That's a false choice. On the contrary, the pandemic is a reminder that health and the economy are inseparable. WHO is committed to working with all countries to move into a new stage of opening their economies, societies, schools, and businesses safely. To do that, every single person must be involved. Every single person can make a difference. Every person, family, community, and nation must make their own decisions based on the level of risk where they live. That means every person and family has a responsibility to know the level of transmission locally and to understand what they can do to protect themselves and others. At the same time, we cannot go back to the way things were. Throughout history, outbreaks and pandemics have changed economies and societies. This one will be no different. In particular, the pandemic has given new impetus to the need to accelerate efforts to respond to climate change. The pandemic has given us a glimpse of our world as it could be: cleaner skies and rivers.